organizing from all over the world, where people have basically said, the government's failed us, or this corporation's failed us, so we're going to start governing ourselves. We're going to take over this company, or we're going to, start deciding how our local government spends its budget, or we're going to start building cooperatives that are owned and run by people in this town to meet our needs. And for me, I think, for people who are feeling disempowered, because it can be really disempowering to look at this system and think I'm just one person, that's where we start to really make changes, because you start to change things locally, yes, and that can make a difference. But more than that, you realize that when you become part of a group, when you join alongside other people who are in the same position as you, who also want the world to change, but also feel powerless, that you have that collective power. And when you have that collective power, people start to take notice. And that's when you get real change.
Yes. And I noticed that in a lot of the union movements that have been happening recently across the United States, and I shouldn't be, but it strikes me as noteworthy at any rate that many of them are Trump supporters. And I think the reason that occurs to me as an unusual thing is because for so long we have been focused, by this system in basically parsing cultural differences as our politics. And because we have not been allowed to change the economic structure and the material conditions around our lives. And so we've been contained within this little section of fenced off area of cultural contestation. And we've been divided between liberals and conservatives and people who, wave different flags or have different signs or wear different hats or, are either, or express themselves differently on Twitter or what have you.
Yeah.
And I think Trump is a big outcropping of that. But when it comes down to it, ultimately, our economic interests, that of the mass of people in the United States and elsewhere around the world, are basically the same. We each want to get the things that we need. We each want food and shelter and health care. And for the most part, when it comes down to those basic issues, we are all on the same page. And if we focus on that and we ignore the voices that say, well, we can't deal with that person because he's dealing with Trump, or we can't deal with that person because he's a Biden supporter. If we ignore that and come together and focus on the things that we all need and want to one degree or another, then we can overcome what are really, although they suffuse our culture, like superficial differences between us. I think we can succeed in that way.
Yeah, and I think there's a reason that the culture wars have heated up so much over the last kind of 15 years or so. It's because the economic model stopped working. Before the financial crisis, it was working for the average American, right?
Yeah.
Because you could take out tons of debt, you could buy a house. Obviously, this was all built on foundations of sand. It was a house of cards, but no one knew that at the time. And that was the deal for a while. It was, you work hard, you get a massive mortgage, you buy a house, and you'll get richer because the value of that house will keep going up and up and up forever. So it was when that bargain was broken and eventually people realized, okay, there is no going back to that pre-2008 world. Initially, the left was able to take advantage of it to some extent, but very quickly, the right learned, okay, well, all we have to do is explain this new sense of basically, poverty that many people are experiencing as the result of, migration or race wars, or we have to explain the status anxiety of young men as basically being women have become too powerful.
Right.
And actually it's no, the status anxiety of young men is because their parents were able to buy a house and raise a family by the age of 30, and they can't do any of those things because they don't have any money, they don't have healthcare, they have no job security. So they feel like they're low in the pecking order because of the way that they're treated in the labor market. So, I find it really interesting that the right has been so successful at latching onto economic issues and explaining them in cultural terms. And the left kind of hasn't been able to return by speaking to these like issues around how the economy works. We've kind of just returned by speaking in a very individualistic sense of like, this person's good, this person's bad, right? Rather than actually saying, okay, well, what underlies these trends? Like, what's actually happening to make, you know, this economic model break down, or, you know, to make like people so angry or whatever. And I think partly that's to do with the way, as you say, with the way we communicate. And this is, you know, there's lots of different, you know, studies about how politicians should communicate to people on the macro level, and that's all very well and good. But for me, the way that we start to move away from this is by having conversations ourselves. Yeah. So that's like socialists having conversations with other workers in their workplaces, or people having conversations in their communities, you know, talking about issues that they face collectively and saying, well, this is potentially a way out. So that's really why I start with these questions around community organizing and worker organizing, because that's the only way in for a lot of people.
Yeah, no, I think you're completely right on that. And I think community and the local level is absolutely the key to that, because relatively speaking, we have greater power, and the power structure, since it is so removed, has less power, and we can leverage things that actually more directly impact our lives in that way, and that we can see directly around us that impact us. You know, roads and jobs and the hospital and the doctor's office and things like that. And we can talk to real people that experience those same things. And because even with all the money that they have enormous influence. Like, they can't possibly go into every single community in the world and fix everything. They've got to focus on fixing the big things, on rigging the big things so that they benefit them, and then have everything going downstream. If they're forced to fight in every little, community, every little quote unquote battlefield across the country and across the world, then they will lose. And we will win, and that's where we have to engage with them, and that's where we have to fight them, because we're most bound together by the people that we actually know directly and have relationships, and we need to build from those relationships, because ultimately that's much stronger than money. That's what we built. That's what we're looking for when we get money, is the things that we actually get through direct relationships with each other.
Yeah, totally. And the part of the book that I really enjoyed researching and writing was that part where I look at these experiments in like community organizing and democratic planning. Yeah. So there's a great example from the US actually of this organization called Cooperation Jackson in Mississippi. And basically these guys all came together and just said, our community is failing us, our government is failing us, what can we do? So they got some people elected to the local government, but then they just set up all of these co-ops, these just cooperative businesses that would do things like they would provide, food to the community. They would provide gardening, carpentry, all of these services. And then the money that they made would be reinvested back into these community hubs that would give people training, that would provide people with jobs, and that would create this sense of community cohesion and actually empower people who had been left behind, or who were basically told, you are of no use to society. And I think that is, I write later in the book that approaching people with an offer of empowerment is very different to approaching them with an offer of protection. And the left has often been like, vote for us, we'll make your lives less bad, or we'll protect you against the economy or whatever. And actually, I think that needs to change massively, and it needs to be, you need to take power. And we as a political party will support that. But ultimately, this has to be about empowering people to take control of their lives.
Yeah, it does. Because when we do, we speak out for things that we actually want and need, and our needs get talked about and debated, and sometimes implemented. I know you were talking
Exactly.
about like this being an oligarchy, and what I think was about 10 years ago that there was a study, I think at Princeton, that talked about how small a percentage, and they had analyzed them, of decisions that get made by the government actually reflect what the majority of people want. Yeah. And if we are engaged in that process and we do take power, then we have the ability to transform like what everything looks like. And that's what I would remind people too.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that you're doing this as well, that it doesn't have to look like this. It can look like what we want it to. If we work together to get it, and it's not going to be easy. It's going to be a lot of work, but we're kind of already doing a lot of work under this system. We're doing like way more work than we need to be, and we're not seeing the benefits of it, because that's kind of what capitalism is about. That the whole surplus labor thing. That is what's like driving this whole mechanism. It doesn't have to. It doesn't have to. We can reap the benefits for ourselves, and it doesn't have to be just a small group of people at the top. And I'm so glad that you've written extensively about that, and I'm so glad that you're putting this idea out there more. So thank you, Grace Blakeley, again the author of Vulture Capitalism, Corporate Crimes, Backdoor Bailouts, and the Death of Freedom. Here's to working together in community on a local level and seeing the entire system transform that way. Grace, thank you for being on Facepalm America.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks so much for listening today. I want to thank Ace Elson and Rosabelle Hine for producing this program. Again, you can go to facepalmamerica.com. You can also text or call us at 202-656-6271. Share a link to this episode on your social media so that more people can learn about it. And until next time, enjoy the day.